I'm Dave Cawley, investigative journalist and host of the podcast Cold. Don't miss Cold's new Season 3, where I look into the unsolved disappearance of Cherie Warren, a woman last seen leaving her job at a Salt Lake City office in 1985. Police cast suspicion on Cherie's estranged husband and boyfriend, but never made any arrests or recovered Cherie's remains. Find Cold Season 3, The Search for Cherie, anywhere you get your podcasts.
In today's episode of Project Recovery,
it was just so cool, that first ride where I wasn't sure if anyone was going to show up, and then all of a sudden people started trickling in, and it was cool because people started saying that this was what they were looking forward to. This was something that they're like, all right, I can't wait till the community ride to start.
Make sure you listen to the end. Find us on Facebook at Project Recovery. We'll have that and much more coming up. Hey, welcome to Project Recovery, a podcast about addiction, but more importantly, it's about recovery, and it's brought to you by our friends at knowyourscript.org. They're a wealth of information. Go check them out. If you or a loved one are trying to figure out opioids, which I think a lot of us are, right, they can help you talk to yourself, talk to your doctor, and just make sure you're getting the best treatment possible. They're also responsible for our guest today. His name is Cullen Easter. We're going to talk to him in just a few seconds.
They're responsible for him?
Yeah, well, yeah. They said, hey, we've got this cool cat. He's got this great organization. You're going to want to hear from him.
All right.
And I was like, done.
So if he does something inappropriate, they have to take care of it?
Well, he's not going to. Look at that guy.
I know. He doesn't. It would be more likely one of us.
Colin, real quick, anytime you showed up to date somebody, were their parents just happy that you showed up? Because you just look like the all-American boy.
I hope so.
They're like, see, modest, too.
Right. Perfect.
So, Dr. Matt, this first 10 minutes of the podcast is where we kind of talk about our week.
Yeah.
I had a week that's insane.
Oh, yeah?
Crazy.
Okay.
So it starts out Saturday night. Uh-huh. I'm DJing for Budweiser's employee party.
For sure. Why not?
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's a
because your brother works for Budweiser.
My brother works for him. It's a paying gig. I need money.
Sure.
And I was like, yes.
Yeah.
And it was at my mom's house.
And it was at your mom's house.
Yeah.
All right.
So I checked all the right boxes.
Sure.
And that was cool. And, it wasn't like this crazy party where everybody was just drinking Bud Light and all that. There was some drinking going on. But it was mostly to say thank you to the employees for working hard during COVID because, as we know, it's hard to get good employees right now.
Oh, yeah. Everybody's struggling with it. Yeah.
And these guys have stepped up and went above and beyond. But the interesting thing is while I was DJing that party, I had 3 or 4 people come up to me that were in recovery and that we were talking. One guy had celebrated 31 years. The last time he drank was over in Germany at some metal conference.
So metal conference?
Yeah, like it was this big metal conference.
Heavy metal band music?
Yeah.
I don't think they have conferences. I think they have concerts.
Well, but I think it was a convergence of all these great metal gods that came together. And threw this party. And he goes, that's the last time I ever drank.
And he works for Budweiser?
Yep.
He's sober 31 years?
Yep.
Wow, that's an accomplishment.
And so that was cool.
Yeah.
Flash forward to Monday. Mm-hmm. I'm emceeing the Salt Lake Parade of Homes.
Right.
And that was a lot of fun. I met a lot of great people. Also met some people in recovery. Mm-hmm. But I had an interesting thing happen. They had an open bar.
At the Parade of Homes?
Well, it was a VIP party.
Oh, okay.
So they had an open bar.
It's like Parade of Homes has changed since I went last.
No, but it's a great parade.
Oh, it is. Fantastic. Yeah.
One of the first in the nations.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, you say so.
They told me. It was in my script.
Then it's got to be true.
So I go up to the bar.
Yeah.
And I go, I just, I want a Diet Coke. And so they put it in a cup.
Yeah.
And so they put it in the cup and the ice. And I'm walking around mingling, talking to everybody.
Yeah.
And 3 or 4 times, people I was talking to looked at my eye, looked at the cup, looked at my eye, looked at my cup.
Yeah.
And then I'd have to go through, it's Diet Coke. Okay. You know what I mean? But I could tell that there was,
you could see what there's
an elephant in the room. You know what I mean? I'm talking about recovery.
Diet Coke or Jack and Coke?
Diet Coke.
Right.
And I'm not even a fan of Diet Coke, but that's all they had.
Okay.
It was a dirty Diet Coke.
Dirty? What does that mean?
Oh, they put a little coconut in it?
Really?
Yeah, it's a huge thing.
Taste good?
I mean, it's all right. It's a Diet Coke.
Okay, I've never had that.
It's pretty good.
Okay.
But that was an amazing time and had a wonderful evening. So,
did that bother you that people were kind of eyeing your drink and wondering what you're up to?
I'm going to get to that in just a second.
Okay. Fair enough.
And then Thursday night, I go out and I talk about recovery in Tooele for our friend Life's Worth Living Foundation.
Right. Yeah.
And so there's a bunch of people out there talking to them, promoting recovery, hearing a lot of stories, sharing hugs, sharing tears. I mean, just a good time.
Yeah.
Coming up this Saturday, DJing a funeral.
You're DJing a funeral.
A funeral.
Okay.
So here's the deal. So their loved one passed away over a year ago during COVID.
Okay.
And the family wasn't able to get together for it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And so this is the first time that they can get
So it's
together.
kind of a celebration of life type get together.
And I was talking to the lovely
lady. It's not the actual funeral.
It's not the actual funeral, but they are going to. So I said, so what do you want me to do? And they go, well, to be honest with you, we've all had a year to kind of mourn and come to grips with the loss of our mother. Mm-hmm. And we want to get together. So we're going to do a short program before. And, and do kind of the proper stuff. But then afterwards, we want to party. We want to dance because we haven't seen these people in over a year.
I think that's great.
And I thought, this is great.
Yeah.
But, and so there's going to be alcohol at that one.
Okay.
And so I go from alcohol to non-alcohol to alcohol to non-alcohol, all these different parties.
Yeah.
And then I had somebody reach out to me on Facebook, and I've got the text.
Okay.
And this is just the craziness that I live in for 1 week.
You do get around. This has been a busy week for you.
Are you drinking vodka again? You're effing pathetic, bum. I know you're drinking again, or maybe using meth, loser.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tell us how you feel.
Yeah, I was like, whoa. And that's just out of the blue.
So you just got this message through Facebook.
Yeah.
Totally lights you up.
Yeah. Don't even know the person.
You don't know them?
Don't know the person.
Okay.
So I write, nope, 100% sober. Thanks for your concern. Please stop Facebook messaging me.
Wow.
But if you remember...
How often do you get stuff like
crazy,
that?
Right?
Well, that's pretty intense.
Yeah.
And,
There's a lot of aggression in that short little text.
There's a lot of anger there, yeah.
But remember... Probably 3-4 weeks ago, I said, there's a weird thing going on in my sobriety and my recovery right now because I am now kind of integrating back into normal world, if that makes any sense.
Well, yeah, just doing all, trying to get jobs, working, going to parties, yeah.
And I'm getting requested and paid to show up to certain events, which I did before.
Right, yeah, you've done that forever.
And that's how I make my living. That's one of the ways that I provide for my family. And for a while there, I thought that I was never going to be invited back to these events.
Oh, really?
And that, yeah, because I wasn't sure. You know what I mean? I didn't know if my name was tarnished such that they didn't want to be associated with me. I didn't know how it was going to play out.
Yeah.
And so I'm super stoked to be a part of these events now. And I'm confident in my sobriety to be a part of these events because I know I can do the work. I know I'm good at what I do. I can MC, I can DJ, I can navigate a party and make sure that everybody's having a good time.
You're a great MC, for sure.
So I'm really stoked.
I know one guy who's not going to hire you to be an MC.
That guy.
Facebook guy.
Yeah. But the thing is that that's where it is right now. And so that goes back to the people looking at my cup.
Yeah.
At first, I feel a little weird, but I also understand my history. Mm-hmm. So it's probably out of concern,
I think it's out of concern. It's also probably just curiosity. I mean, normal human curiosity. You've really attacked this message of sobriety and recovery in your daily life, this podcast, and now it's, all over the place and different things that you do. You have a big presence on social media. And so I think it's just probably curiosity. I know some people kind of hedge towards the negative. They might be rooting for you to have a misstep or a relapse, right? To fail.
Yeah.
But I bet most people it's more just curiosity.
Yeah. And so that's what and all week long, I'm doing all these wonderful things. I'm meeting all these great people. And without a doubt, anywhere I go do an MC or a DJ, I run into fellow people in recovery. And we share our stories. And it's good because they go, oh, you're here. Yeah. Yeah, it's okay. And they're like, yeah, me too. But that little community, that connection.
Well, I think what's great about probably the culture shift in the last decade to where now people in recovery were always everywhere, but we didn't know because they were maybe ashamed or embarrassed to bring it up or worried about, judgment from other people. And I think people more and more now, especially because of people with kind of a public presence like you and others who have come out and talked about their sobriety and their recovery process, then just the regular folks in the room are more open about their process. And I think that's like a positive wave of connection. It's spreading to where people feel like, I don't have to be ashamed of this. I don't have to be quiet about it. I can go to a place and let people know I'm in recovery. And people are respectful and even curious. How did you do it?
And so in my head bouncing around, sometimes I get mad because they're questioning me. And then I have to take a deep breath and go, well, no. They're just curious, and it's the way I perceive them, and so I gladly go, no, Diet Coke, and then they move on, you know. And I was at the Budweiser party, and I'm drinking water, and I'm having a good time, and everybody's having a good time, and it's just my world feels right now. I mean, and I'm very happy, and it brought me to what really started this whole conversation. I heard somebody say this on the radio the other day. Sometimes great presents come in horrible packaging.
Yeah?
And
what does that mean to you?
That because of the accident and all the things that happened to me, I looked at it like this was ending my life. This was the worst thing that could ever happen to me.
Sure.
And no matter how much you could have talked to me back then, I would have said, this is it. It's done. It's over. But because of that, I have this wonderful life right now. I'm secure in myself. I'm secure with my family. And because of that, I get to do what I truly love. And I loved what I did back then. And now I get to do it again because I'm sober. And people are giving me an opportunity to do it.
I think that's fantastic. I like that saying, great presents come in horrible packages. I think that's fantastic. Has everything to do with our perception.
Yeah.
And I would venture to guess, Casey, what people may know about you, or maybe they don't, is everywhere Casey Scott goes, he knows people, and people know him. I've never gone anywhere with you where people aren't like, hey, Casey, like people know you because you're such an outgoing, optimistic, friendly person, and you've done lots of these events over the years. But my guess is that you're doing them better now.
I think so.
That it's a higher quality Casey showing up to DJ your party or MC the event, because you are sober and you don't get sloppy, and I don't think things ever went wrong per se, but I mean sometimes
no, they went wrong sometimes.
Okay.
So I was talking to my girlfriend about this, and I said normally when I was doing an event, and this was up until the very end, I would normally have a couple beers before I even got there, just to calm the anxiety inside of me, just to kind of to even out, you know what I mean? Just go, okay.
Pre-game.
Yeah. Yes. And then sometimes I would continue drinking. Sometimes I wouldn't, depending on the party. But without a doubt, I would have a couple beers before I ever stepped on stage. And it wasn't when I was doing TV, but when I was emceeing events and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah.
It was
always public events.
Yeah, it was always a couple beers.
Yeah.
And I thought I needed it. But because of the past 2 months and me doing more of these events, I know that I never needed that. I just thought I did. And I'm actually better.
So what are you doing? So that's a good question. So anxiety, that's not going to be different. In fact, in some ways, since you're doing it without the alcohol, it might be a little bit more acute. What are you doing now to calm your anxiety before you go on stage?
Do you really want to know?
I think so. That was a weird way to answer that.
Well, I sit in the car.
Yeah.
And I turn the rear view mirror and I face it towards me. And I look at myself.
Stuart Smalley?
It's almost like a Stuart Smalley, but not to that vein.
Okay.
I take a deep breath.
Yeah.
And I go, look, we can do this. And this is what I did when I was drinking. Yeah. I'd have conversations in the mirror, and the mirror would talk back. But this time I'm sober, and I'm talking to the mirror, and I go, hey, we can do this. And the mirror looks back and goes, yeah, you can. Look how far we've come. Look what we've done. And I go, I know, right?
Yeah.
And then we go, all right, you ready? And the mirror goes, yep, let's do this.
That's a great attitude shift. Yeah, that gets you confidence.
And then I open the door and I get out and
you do it.
Yeah.
Nice.
And so it feels good.
And isn't that better than alcohol? Because alcohol slows it all down, and it just kind of masks that anxiety. It doesn't really bring you confidence.
No.
But a positive, healthy attitude, starting your event off that way, that's real confidence.
Yeah, so I just go, we got this. And we go, okay.
Nice.
So it's been a crazy week for me. It's been a lot of fun. And in between events, I always do a self-evaluation. And I go, how did that go? What could we do better? And before, I would never do that. Because I was just on to the next thing and next thing. There's no time to think. There's no time for self-reflection. Now there's a lot of self-reflection. There's a lot of time driving home thinking to myself, well,
when you're addicted, you don't want to do self-reflection, right?
No.
Because that's an ugly game to play, self-reflection, when you're struggling with an addiction.
And I'll leave you with this because I see this on the recovery sites all the time. And if you want to think about your addiction and your past and your future, remember the car. Because on the rearview mirror, it's very small. But the windshield is very big. So, things in your past are going to, let them go away and focus on what's in front of you. And that's the big picture.
I like it.
So that's what we try to do on this podcast. And Dr. Matt, I always love sharing some stories with you.
That's a good one.
It was a good one.
And you know what? I'm glad for you. I'm so glad that you're having all this work coming your way again. That's a big deal. And I think you've attracted that by bringing such positive energy to your recovery. And I hope people listening realize they can do that too.
And you can. And we're going to hear a story from a young man today and talk about how he got into the recovery world without an addiction. His name is Cullen Easter. You're listening to Project Recovery right here on KSL. Welcome back to Project Recovery. I'm Casey Scott. That's Dr. Matt Woolley. He's a clinical psychologist. Our guest today is a registered nurse.
Right. I'm excited.
His name is Cullen Easter.
Correct.
And you're not here because you're an addict, but you're here to help addicts. How does the story of Cullen begin?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. Really happy to be on the show and just kind of tell you what we're working on. But yeah, so my journey into medicine was kind of a long path. Got out of high school, did a lot of sports in high school, so played water polo.
Where did you grow up?
California, so Southern California. In Claremont, California.
All right, the SoCal kid.
Yeah. So, played water polo, kind of never just did sports, school and sports. And
so no partying in high school?
No partying in high school. And so when it was time to, apply to schools, I applied all over and got into Cal Poly San Luis Obispo.
Oh, that's a big party school.
Yeah. And so... went up there and actually got into the major. I just chose one, and it was wine and viticulture. And so it was
for a guy who never partied.
Hold on, pump the brakes.
Yeah.
I'm not sure we have that major at the University of Utah.
Yeah.
So what is it again?
So it's wine and viticulture.
Wow.
And so
what is viticulture?
So viticulture is the study of growing the grapes.
Okay.
So that's actually when you get into the major, you have to decide what you want to focus on. And so I focused on the viticulture, no background in farming, nothing like that. And so this was all brand new to me.
I'm just curious, there's so much pressure to pick a major because it's going to lead to some career. How did you pick that? Were you thinking someday I'm going to be a sommelier or something like that?
I mean, I had heard a little bit about it. I liked it because it was outside. And to be honest, school was always so hard for me. So when I was applying to colleges, I didn't really do great on the SATs. So I got I just was applying. And then when I was looking at majors at Cal Poly, I was like, that looks kind of interesting. So
cool.
Chose it.
Yeah, sounds fun.
Got in.
How did the conversation go when you told your mom and dad that's the major you chose?
They thought it was cool.
Cool.
Yeah, they were like, all right, congratulations.
That's a Southern California parent, just so you know.
Right on, man.
Yeah, that's
cool.
it. If that makes you happy, it's good.
Yeah. That'd be cool, son.
Yeah. So that was, so my dad, he's a OBGYN, so he's a doctor. Mom was a nurse. That's how they met back east. And so it was kind of a different path. So, my grandpa, he's an OBGYN, and my dad's brother's an OBGYN. So it was kind of like this shift. And so moved up to school, settled in. Obviously, it was kind of nerve-wracking when you're getting dropped off, and all of a sudden you have all this freedom. And so quickly it was just, there's parties up there, and
sure.
And all of a sudden school becomes something that it's up to you to go to.
Yeah, nobody's calling
no
you.
one's really
it's the first time you haven't been supervised in
Right.
your life.
Yeah.
And that's why freshman year, sophomore year, you're making up a lot of credits from freshman year for a lot
I was
of
making
people.
up credits my second sophomore year.
Yeah, well, that helps if you do 2 sophomore years.
I did.
Yeah.
And so you automatically got kind of thrust into the party life.
Right. And no experience with it. And so my personality is I have an addictive personality. When I was in sports, I just latched on, and so that was what ended up happening essentially. And it was fun and new, and I was making friends, and it was it was awesome. And then quickly was realizing that it was starting to affect my classes. But of course, when you're hanging out with the people that are doing it, they're like, "You'll be fine."
Just
cram before the finals, and you'll be good. And so quickly realized, and it was just so opposite of what I normally was like in high school, and quickly realized I was not doing good in my classes. And then the way it was working out was I didn't really have I wasn't sharing. I was saying that my grades were doing great, but they weren't, and I didn't really have to show that to my parents. And then one day my dad was like, "Yo, let me see what your grades are looking like." And then that was kind of basically I was failing, and so got put on academic probation. Thought that would kind of turn it around. You'd think that would motivate you. Didn't. And went on academic probation for a second time, and that's when got kicked out of college. And it was just it's embarrassing, and you just think, God, how did I screw that? 2 years you're up there, and it's just So parents were like, "All right, time to come home, and you got to figure this out," and they're so supportive, and I'm really close with my family. And so I was just like, all right, come home. Obviously I was upset, and I hated it because it was I had made a bunch of friends up there. So moved home, and I had a friend, Jess Gilkey, up at school. And as I was kind of in the throes of not doing well, he was like, you're going to fail out of school, and you're going to become a janitor. He's like, you watch. And I was like, yeah, good one. We're out at a party. I'm like, yeah, good one, buddy. That'll happen.
He's reading your future.
Yeah. So then I get home, and I'm home, and I'm looking for jobs. And of course, there's a job that says night shift janitor, apply here. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. And so I was like, but it was with Pomona College, which was a great university down in Southern California. I was like, well, so I applied, and I got the job.
Goodwill Hunting.
Yeah, and then that became the joke. So I would be calling up Jess yeah, I'm going to be doing math equations on the board, and he's cracking up, and so I mean it was I always joke about stuff, but deep down you're like, God, this sucks. This is embarrassing.
Yeah,
I'm a janitor now, and not that. I mean, it's a hard job. And if there's a job that teaches you want to make a change, it's start cleaning up toilets, and that'll switch your mindset pretty quickly.
I had a job briefly in my undergraduate years where I would clean up a urology office at night. So it was basically a mega janitor job.
Wow.
Yeah. That was fun.
So you're doing night janitoring.
Yes.
Janitorialing.
Yep.
Correct.
And
master of the custodial arts.
There you go. Nailed it.
Yeah.
So how long do you do that for?
So I did that for about, I think, 2 years. And in that time, wasn't happy, but that was kind of my first introduction. My younger brother Griffin and my older brother Stratton, they were both riding their road bikes, bicycling. And and I had done that too through school, but I had stopped doing it as much.
Did your drinking continue during your janitorial time?
Yeah, probably continue. Obviously there was I wasn't happy, and so it was just kind of something to do, when you're home, and so. But I remember my brother going "What are you doing? You should get back into biking. This is a great way to." Pass the time. So I started riding a little bit more. And then during that time, I remember I was out to lunch with my mom, and we were eating, and we saw an ambulance drive by, and she's like, I think you'd be good at that. You ever think, we want to try that? Be an EMT? Maybe you might be good at that, And so I was like, all right, fine, I'll try it, And so I went to Citrus College, which is a community college And, I remember sitting outside thinking, like, what am I doing? This is stupid. And, went in, there was like a line of people that were on the wait list. And I was like, perfect. Like, I'm not going to get in this class, so I'll be good. At least I went, that kind of thing. And we all got little tickets, And then, of course, they called the lottery of the ticket holders, which was the line, and my number's called. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm doing it now. And so then that was when I got introduced to Cliff Hatzel. He was my EMT teacher, who I'm still close with today. And it was just like, that was the first time school was fun. And like, I was studying, I was like reading the book. I never read the textbook. And I was highlighting, and I was going to the library, and I felt like I finally was getting good grades. Like, I was getting A's and B's on tests. And it was just such a great feeling to finally find that passion.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's like because it's in my blood, but it was like you could see my parents were like, I think you found it. Like, I think, you're good at this. And I'd go to clinicals, and it was like I was on it, like on the ambulance. And it was like finally it felt like sports, it's fast paced, and it's
a rush, right?
It's a rush, yeah. And like going lights and sirens to something, you're just like, this is awesome.
So now you're a certified EMT, and you want to take it to the next level.
Right. So 2 years on the ambulance in Los Angeles, and then 2 years in the ER at the hospital my dad worked at in San Antonio Hospital. And then that was when I really loved the ER, and I just loved that it was a controlled environment. It was well lit, which like going...
What was it like LA in nighttime? I mean, a lot of addiction, a lot of substance abuse, a lot of stuff. You were on the front row.
Yeah, so surprisingly enough, I worked on a 24-hour unit. So we slept at the station, and we were the psych ambulance. So we went to we were an interfacility transport unit. So we would take people from psych hospitals back to the hospital, picking people up. And then we did a lot of calls to the jails, like the LA County Jail. And it was an experience for sure,
Bringing people in for evaluations from jail to the hospital.
Having like a sheriff sit in the back with you. And, And so, it was a great experience. But like when I got to the ER, just like, having a controlled environment, like it was awesome. You had all your supplies there with you. It was well lit. You could see things, and like you were just like, all right, that was where I found like, and then really I loved just like watching the nurses. It was just like that. I just was like, okay, that's what I want to do next. Like I want to be a nurse. And so a buddy of mine, Reese Kagans, he was going to school at Colorado Mesa in Grand Junction, and he was playing soccer there, and he's like, hey, they got a great nursing program here. You should come to school here. So I was like, all right, let's do it. So I packed up and went to school again for part 2. So
let me ask you a quick question. So you're at college, you get into the drinking, the party scene, wash out of college, you go home, you're working as a janitor to fulfill your buddies, predictions, right? And you keep drinking during that time because, like you said, you were bummed out and bored when you weren't at work. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden you find your passion. You win the lottery quite literally because you find this passion, you find a great teacher, and I can't emphasize enough how important it is to find a great teacher, a great mentor in life. Does that change? Does your drinking start to change at that point when you find your passion, or did you keep drinking the same?
So I had, a moment where my parents sat me down one day in my room and were like, you need to knock it off, kind of thing. And so, and I'm very close with my mom and dad, and so to have that happen was like enough for me to kind of go like, I didn't want to do it anymore. Did that like stop? Like I think it kind of slowed it down a lot. And then it was really when I got out to Colorado for nursing school, because like what I realized was, it wasn't at the level that I was doing it at, but then there was always, if you went out, it could always get to that level. So that was what was getting me nervous, was like, it's like there was no in between. It was kind of like, you'd go out to a party and then like next thing you know. So if you started,
you couldn't stop.
Yeah. And so when I was out at school, out in Grand Junction, I remember I was getting back into cycling once again, like the bike. I really enjoyed it. I was good at it. And that was when, my brother Griffin was kind of like, hey, because he was racing down at Fort Lewis College in Durango. He was like, you should just stop and you should see what happens when you stop. You should try to go all in on cycling and just
stop the drinking.
Stop drinking.
Yeah.
And so, and I mean, I was like, I just wasn't that healthy, like on the ambulance, the culture of EMS, it's like you're smoking cigarettes, you're chewing tobacco, you're drinking energy drinks, you're drinking, it's like
a lot of stimulants, right?
A lot of stimulants to stay awake. And so it's
a lot of gas station burritos.
Yeah. Horrible burritos, And so like I finally kind of just said, all right, like, let's see. I almost kind of took it as like, all right, yeah, let's see what happens if I stop. And so then I felt, surprising. I mean, it's so simple, but you feel amazing. And you all of a sudden things just start clicking. Like school is better and your relationships are better and you feel good and you feel like you're waking up early in the morning and you're getting after it. And then my training got better. And then that, led to me getting onto my first pro cycling team. And so it was just like the bike, looking back is like the bike has always been this thing that like has kind of been a part of my life. And then it was the one thing that like got me to focus and took me to a professional cycling team. And then next thing I know, I'm traveling all over the world racing. And so
here you go again. Isn't it interesting, Casey, like how many of our guests have that all-in personality?
Yes.
That just, I'm going to go in 100%. Because he just made it sound like, oh, yeah, I stopped drinking and I was practicing and then I was a pro cyclist. Whoa, back up, professional cyclist. That's a big deal. That's a lot of work. And that just tells me that, man, people with that kind of all-in 100% personality, if it's
channeled in the right way.
Channeled in the right way, the success is just boom.
It's unstoppable. I want to ask you, do you think had you not stopped drinking, and this could be loaded and you can tell me no, what are the chances you could have become an alcoholic?
I think that very much so. I think that, like the way things were going, there was no positive outcome to the way things were going. I think that, I was talking with my mom today. We were just kind of talking about how cool it was, where I was and where I am today, and just how proud of that change that we all are, were about that. And I think we were both saying, it's like, what would have happened?
See,
it's
that's
like
the crazy
you would
thing.
have gotten.
But that's one of the reasons we started this, Cullen, is because maybe your rock bottom doesn't have to be your rock bottom. And I know from experience and from Facebook messages and people's personal stories, but because of this podcast, they didn't hit their rock bottom. They did a self-evaluation. They did check themselves and went, you know what? I don't need to know where this is going because I can just change now. And that's what we wanted to be. And so you're telling your story, and although you're not an alcoholic, what you were saying was so similar to so many guests that have been on this podcast.
Yep.
But luckily, something happened, an intervention or something, and all the things lined up, you won the lottery, that you dramatically changed the course of your life without having to hit that rock bottom. I mean, for some people, getting kicked out of school would have been a rock bottom. For some people, being a janitor would have been a rock bottom, which I think it's a good profession, but I understand where Cullen's coming from.
It's not what he was wanting to be.
Yes.
And that's the difference. Right?
And then your brother goes, hey, just quit and see what happens. And I tell people that all the time, that they go, I don't know if I drink too much. And I go, well, the fact that we're having this conversation probably means you do.
Yeah.
But okay, I'll play. I'm good. I go, here's what I suggest you do. Give up drinking for 1 year. And at the end of the year, if your life's not better, then you can always go back and drink. But I'll bet you your life will be better.
Have a long list of things that are improved.
Yes. From relationship to health to job to personal, all that. I bet you money that your life will be better.
Yeah. Anybody take you up on it?
No.
Because a year seems like too long of a time.
But they're still negotiating.
And that's your answer. Am I drinking too much?
Yeah. And they're still negotiating their sobriety.
Right.
They're trying to figure it out. By that point, it's already got them.
Well, I think the thing that Cullen, that you're bringing up that is so along the lines of what I'm interested in when it comes to recovery is passion and perception. And that is, you found something to motivate you, something that was healthy and positive. It started off with getting into the field of medicine through being an EMT. And then on top of that, it was health through the competitiveness of bicycling. And then the perception, and I think that's what you're talking about, Casey, is like we've had people come on this program, and people can go back and listen to past episodes, and they'll say something horrific happened, and Casey and I look at each other, we're like, well, there's the rock bottom. Nope. And then the next horrific thing happens. It's even worse. There's the rock bottom. Nope. And oftentimes the change point, the turning point, has everything to do just with the person's perception. And so what do you think it was about your brother's challenge and about the bicycle that changed your perception to, I think I will follow his advice and shift and not drink anymore and focus on the bicycling? What about that do you think changed your mind?
I think for me, it was like I wasn't happy with who I was when I was drinking. I wasn't fun to be around. And then I think that I love sports, and I just I knew that I could be good at cycling. And when he said that, and he was like, I think you could do this, it was almost like it was just that moment where I was like, you know what? Yeah, I want to stop. I just I'm done with this. I'm getting older now, and it's like I was just like, I just want to try something different. Like I want to see what happens, and I'm just like so grateful I did, because it's just led to so much cool stuff. So
ended up being a professional bike rider.
Yeah.
But that's not where his story ends. You're now a registered nurse.
Correct.
You find yourself working at UNI, which is now Huntsman Mental
Health Institute.
Yep. And you find yourself on the detox floor. And that's a floor that I spent 7 days on. That's where most people here in Utah, a lot of them, if they're going to detox from alcohol or opioids.
In my opinion, it's the place to go.
Yeah.
It's a safe, healthy place to go for detox.
And you said after the first day, you really enjoyed it there.
Yeah. And I always kind of think that things happen for a reason. And so I just finished racing the Tour of Utah. I was finishing up nursing school, knew that I wanted to work. We did a month out here in Park City to altitude train prior to the race, and stayed with the family up in Park City, the Swinsons. They're super cool. And every day of the stage of the race, UofU Health was sponsoring the medical. So I'd just ride up to the booth and I would say, hey, I want to work at your hospital. Just letting you know I'm graduating nursing school. And they're like, all right, great. Like, good luck today. It's like, cool. And then I just, next stage, go right back and like, hey again. Like, I just letting you know, like, I'm coming. I'm going to work. And then they're like, okay, cool. So that race ends, and I had a week off of racing, and I was down in Durango. And so I just packed up a bag, got a nice outfit, and I drove up here to Salt Lake. I applied to every floor of the hospital, and I just went in. This is obviously pre-COVID. Went in, and I would just go to these floors, and everybody would look at me like I was crazy. They're like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm just here to meet the manager, let them know I applied. And they're like, oh, all right. So I'd say hello. And
I hope the kids out there are listening. That's how you get a job.
That's tenacity.
That is how you get a job. I hope my kids are listening.
Yeah. And so then eventually one of the places, they were sitting and talking with me, and they're like, I think UNI, or, now Huntsman Mental Health Institute, they're like, I think they're hiring on the detox unit. And I had applied to that unit. So I was like, cool, I'm going to go over and introduce myself. So drive over, kind of have a little bit forgot about, from my psych ambulance days, that psych hospitals are a locked facility. You got to kind of have like an appointment. It's for the safety of the patients, for the staff. And so I show up and I'm like, hi, how you doing? Here to meet the manager for the detox unit. And they're like, nope. Like, no, like, we'll let her know you're here, but like, you can't go up there. I'm like, oh, okay. So I give them my number and I head out and I'm like, God, that sucked. And then I'm sitting in the parking lot and I get a phone call, and it's Cheryl Salmon, and she's the nurse manager for the floor. And she goes, "Hi, I got a call that you were here to, meet with me." I introduced myself, and she goes, "Where are you?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm in the parking lot right now." And then she goes, "All right, I have a few meetings. Why don't you let me talk to a few people? I'll call you back, and we might be able to get you an interview." And I was like, "Okay, cool.
Awesome."
So I go back to my hotel. I go get suited up for a bike ride. I'm like a block away from the hotel, get the call, and she's like, "Hey, we can do it. Like, can you be up here?" And I whoop, U-turn, get dressed again, head up. And then it was just like, this is my first nursing interview. Like, I was nervous. And it was just one of those things where it just felt like organic and natural. And she loved how I drove from Colorado and so we connected really well. And she goes, "I think you're a great fit for what we're doing. Like, I think this would be a great first nursing job." And so that was that. And then I said, "Sure, I'll do it." And
I'll just put my plug in. I've been, over the years, had lots of reasons to interact with people at different facilities. And one of the reasons I did my postdoctoral fellowship there was because of the people. And to put a plug in that's positive for Huntsman Mental Health, I am not surprised she called you back. And I'm not surprised she got you in for an interview that day, just because that's the culture up there. It's a great place to work, and it's also a great place to go get better.
Yeah.
So how long did you work there?
So I was there 2 years, and it was just awesome.
But while you were there 2 years, you had some family problems arise.
Yeah, so right around when I started, this is my first introduction to detox, and I fell in love immediately. And I think that, one, I was able to kind of connect with people and just kind of say, I had a better idea of what it felt like to kind of be. Sometimes, I mean, there were stories that were just insane, but I felt like I could actually sit down and talk with these people coming through. And
I mean, for your short experience in partying, but you probably went through some of the similar stuff they are. At one point during your conversation, you said you didn't like the person you are. Yeah. And, I think that's very relatable for a lot of addicts and a lot of people that are in that situation. So I think there was a relatability that probably drew you to them and them to you. Yeah. And so you're there and you get a call from home.
Yeah. So our cousin Matt, so he had been struggling with a heroin addiction, and this was happening right when I started working there. So I'm getting firsthand experience, seeing it in the community, seeing that it has it does not discriminate.
No.
We had business professionals, athletes. It wasn't what you normally think is the addict that you think of on the street, or
and
all walks of life.
All walks of life.
And at this point, do you know enough that it ends two ways? Either they stop or they die.
Right. And so I was hearing, we would get the phone calls, and we were getting updates on Matt, and that he was in and out of treatment, and it was a roller coaster. You would see how, just even with his family, that it just affected everybody. And we were close, but it wasn't I wasn't always calling. They lived in Pennsylvania. It wasn't like we were calling every day and that kind of thing. And so there was always this part of me, I felt like, man, I'd love to reach out to him because I'm working in this field. But it was also hard because it was he wouldn't be answering his phone or, that kind of thing. And so there was always that part of me that was like, dang, I wish I could reach out. And so then, but it was essentially it got to that point where we were all just it was kind of that thing where you were just wondering when you were going to get that call that something bad happened. And eventually we did get that call. A bad batch went out to that community of heroin, and it was cut with fentanyl or, whatever. And he overdosed and passed away. And so it was just it was just something that you couldn't believe, because growing up as kids with Matt, he was just so funny and he was an athlete, and he was just this full of life kid, and it was to hear that, you're just going how does that happen, coming from a family of medical professionals, and it's like you just think that it rocked me in a like manner of like, you know, you would just never want that to happen to anybody, and it was just so hard to hear that news. And so it was like that was when I kind of had this moment where I was like I wanted to do, like, my brain, the way it works is like I want to make a solution. I need to try to like fix it.
And we're going to find out how he came to the solution and his ideas to help fix the opioid epidemic. You're listening to Project Recovery right here on KSL. Welcome back to Project Recovery. I'm Casey Scott. That's Dr. Matt Woolley. Our guest today is Cullen Easter. Unfortunately, you just lost your cousin to a bad batch of heroin. And you said in your own mind, you've got to figure out a way to fix or help the problem. And how did you come up with an idea to do that? What is your idea?
So after this all happened, we were out to dinner, my brother and I, Griffin, and you know, I started brainstorming ideas. I said, let's try to figure out a solution to this. And you know, the bike, once again, has been a part of my life and such a tool that I've utilized and taken me to so many amazing places. It was just like natural. I just said...
And your brother's a professional cyclist at that time as well, right?
Correct, yeah. And so I was like, it's got to be the bike. I go, let's use the bike let's incorporate the bike into their recovery treatment. And that was kind of when OpiCure Foundation was born.
Now, the OpiCure Foundation is a foundation you started with your brother. And your mission statement is what?
So essentially, we're raising awareness on opioid abuse. We're trying to redefine best practices and then, you know, just affect positive change in Utah and beyond.
Now, when you say best practices, what are some of the things that you come up with?
So what we're doing is we're utilizing the bicycle. We've got a couple of different pillars that we're kind of, founded on. So the first being we're going to be doing a community ride. This community ride will be every Sunday at 9 a.m., leaving from Huntsman Mental Health Hospital in the back parking lot. We go up to the top of Emigration Canyon, but you can take the ride however far you want to go and flip it whenever. So it's for all levels of cyclists, but really a community event that's consistent. It's weekly, and it's a place for people to show up wherever you're at. If you've known someone that's struggled, if you currently struggle with an addiction, or you've lost someone, it's a place to come together and be a part of a community. Now,
because of COVID, it put some of your plans on hiatus. But have you seen some success with what you guys are doing in the community thus far? I mean, what are some of the outcomes of people that you're talking with?
Yeah, so we got about 4 or 5 rides in prior to being, COVID shutting things down, and we had great turnouts. We had like 15 to 20 people that would come out. A lot of them were from Huntsman Mental Health, like just the staff and everything. But it was just so cool, that first ride where I wasn't sure if anyone was going to show up. And then all of a sudden people started trickling in. And it was cool because people started saying that this was what they were looking forward to. This was something that they're like, all right, I can't wait till the community ride to start. And so that was really neat. Was we really got a good following in that short amount of time.
And one thing to keep in mind, and I don't know if everybody knows, the term best practices is an actual thing. What that means is that in any medical specialty, you have best practices, and those are practices of treatment that have qualified to be successful at a certain level. So we would say, if somebody comes in for a particular issue, we want to start with, what are the best practices for treatment for that person. So I think it's important for the listener to know what you guys are doing is pretty impressive, because you're not just raising awareness and not just doing a fun community bike ride, but you're actually looking at how does being on this bike, exercising, and the connection with other people, how does that affect the person in their hopefully potential recovery going forward. So you guys are actually going to be measuring this. You're going to be measuring change over time and hopefully be able to show that, hey, this could be incorporated as one of those best practices for addiction recovery. Is that right?
Yes, correct. So we're going to be researching. That's another aspect of our foundation. And so we partnered up with the University of Utah Health and Huntsman Mental Health Institute. They made an unbelievable donation for us and made it possible for us to purchase 10 bicycles. So we're going to have 10 bikes. We're working with USARA, Mary Jo.
Love them.
Yeah, they're great. And we're reaching out to the recovery centers in Utah, specifically their alumni program, and just trying to get the word out. We have this online application that we've put together, and we're essentially going to we're going to try to get 2 6-week cohorts to come on board. We're going to give them structured training plans. We're working with, essentially giving them the pro cycling experience and seeing how does that benefit them in their recovery? How does that benefit their active recovery? And so...
How cool is that?
That's amazing.
To me, that is so awesome because one of the things we've talked about for a couple years on the show now is there are a lot of different ways to get into recovery and to be a healthy person who's no longer using your substance, your drug of choice. And this is such a cool, creative, but sort of almost a no-brainer sort of way to go. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm looking at your notes here, and it says you guys look at prevention through a recovery lens. What does that mean?
So essentially, we understand that recovery is an ongoing thing. And so it's very, very important to know that that's an active process, that doesn't ever end, and that it can go on. I mean, it goes on for the rest of their lives. And so we want to look at, which was why it was so cool when we connected with Know Your Script, just their initiative of just that education and really getting people familiar with how do you best prepare for that conversation at the hospital if you come across a time when you might need pain medication or and really we're just trying to surround ourselves with people that have that same mindset that this is an active task that you need to participate in every single day, and we're going to try to give you the tool that will help get you week to week to week to week. And then in a lot of cases that is the case. How do I make it to Sunday again for this next ride? And so we're really proud that we can be that event that maybe you show up and you're having a great day, or maybe you show up and you're not having a great day and but you're there and you're present. And I think that looking through that recovery lens is just kind of understanding that everybody's recovery is different and everybody is at a different place in there, but we're there, we're meeting you there, and we're trying to be the best that we can be so that you can be successful.
When you think about recovery, and I often do, there's fit to recovery, which, people come out and then they get their health back and they start working out. And it's been a vital part to my recovery is going to the gym every day. There's Fit to Recovery has an offshoot of music to recover. And it's where all these guys who are in bands come together and they just jam and they just play music.
That's great. I didn't know that.
Yeah, they get to do what they like to do in a safe setting. And then, there's all kinds of different stuff like that. And there might be somebody out there in recovery right now that's looking for something where they go, I don't play an instrument, and I really don't want to, and I'm not a big fan of lifting weights or throwing kettlebells around, but I've always enjoyed...
Everybody likes a bike.
Yeah.
Everybody likes a bike.
You know what I mean? And so maybe this is it. And what I love about this, and what a welcome addition to the recovery community this is it's just another tool for those in recovery to branch out and see something that might click. And that's what we're all looking for, is something that clicks in our recovery that goes, now it makes sense. Yes, I'm in.
Yeah.
I like this.
Yeah.
And so they can come and they can give it a shot. You do the community rides, you said, every Sunday?
It's every Sunday, 9 a.m. Yep.
And we'll put a link at the bottom of this in our Facebook post and all that. But if people want more information about what you guys do, where do they go?
So you can go to our website, opicure.org. And on there's a tab it says sponsorship. You can scroll down. It'll show you the link to take if you want to apply to our program or if you know someone that's interested in applying. And then it also gives you an idea of when our community rides are happening and all the information in between of what we are and what we're trying to do. So
The thing that I like about this podcast as we wrap it up is that, because of Know Your Script, this is how we got a hold of Cullen Easter,
Right.
And before we were getting ready to do this podcast, we were talking about the Opie and everything that you guys are doing. And I don't think he had any idea you were going to sit down and talk about your story. But I think your story is so insightful for many of our listeners out there that might be doing similar things that you were doing, trying to figure out life, just kind of not happy with how it's going, but not sure where to go. And I like the fact that you didn't have to hit a complete rock bottom to change your life. You found something, you found that passion, as Matt said, it ignited something in you, and it started with, the medical field and back to the bike, and now you're doing wonderful things to give back. I mean, I'm impressed by your story all around.
Yeah, I think it's all, again, I've said it before, it's all about perspective. Like, what are we focused on? How do we perceive and interpret the experiences we have in life? And I hope that gives people hope that you don't have to, like Casey says, blow up your own life in order to make healthy, positive changes. And as you were talking a minute ago about, like, there's fit to recover, there's music to recover, we now have bicycling to recover, I guess. The connection.
Run to recover.
Yeah, run to recover. There's a lot of these things. What I love about them is they all have a common factor. There's another research term. What are the common factors that make all these things work? And one of them is
connection.
Yeah, the opposite of addiction is
connection.
And so I love the fact that you guys are doing this together, getting everybody together, people from all walks of life. Sounds like you have staff members and professional medical folks, along with people who have been touched by addiction or people who are struggling with addiction and recovery. And so I love the fact that people can go there and feel that community, because nothing really can bring you along when you're having a bad day like feeling connected with other people. It's the disconnect and the loneliness that keeps us in our bad habits and in our addiction. So I love the fact that this is another example of connection being part of the overall solution.
So what does life look like for you right now?
Well, so working full time up at I started up at the emergency department. So now I'm transitioning into working like at a level 1 trauma center.
Now, I want you to be nice there's going to be a new phlebotomist starting up there in the next few weeks.
Your son?
My son, Jake, is going to be working.
All right.
He's very, very excited. He's in training at ARUP right now, and then he's hired on at the main hospital. So if some goofy-looking kid that sort of looks like me,
holler at him.
give him a hard time. Give him a flat tire when he's running around doing stuff. And
a year ago he'd have been easy to pick out because he had 3 nipples, but now he just looks like everybody else.
Nipples now. No, I'm sorry. Keep going.
Yeah.
So you're working up there,
working full time up there, and then I applied and got accepted into the nurse practitioner program.
Excellent.
For the acute care tract, and so that starts August 23rd, and then just doing this foundation thing full time. And so
you are a go-getter, man. People don't. I mean, nursing
parents love this kid.
Yeah,
I've got a daughter, but she's way too young.
Yeah, darn it. But nursing is such a challenging tract of study. My sister's a nurse practitioner. I work with a lot of great nurses and nurse practitioners, and it is challenging. You're taking it to the next level, working in the ER, starting a foundation. Right? It's impressive, man. It's a lot. You wouldn't even have time to drink, I don't think.
Nope. Yeah. Oh, thank you.
So once again, if people want more information about your company and your foundation, where do they go?
www.opicure.org, and then you can get all the info right there.
And that's OPICURE.
Correct.
Awesome. Hey, thank you very much. We appreciate you stopping by, listening to Project Recovery today. Brought to you by our friends at knowyourscript.org. We love them. Couldn't do it without them. You're listening to Project Recovery, a KSL podcast.
The contents of this program are for informational purposes only. The program is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician, licensed therapist, or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you've heard on this program. KSL does not recommend or endorse any specific tests, physicians, products, procedures, opinions, or other information that may be mentioned on the program. Reliance on any information provided on the program is solely at your own risk.
I'm Dave Cawley, investigative journalist and host of the podcast Cold. In October of 1985, a woman named Cherie Warren left work at a busy Salt Lake City office
to meet her estranged husband at a downtown auto dealership.
She never made it home. Cherie's car surfaced weeks later in Las Vegas.
In the parking lot of a hotel casino.
No one knows how it got there.
Strange. It was strange.
Both Cherie's estranged husband and her boyfriend raised suspicion for investigators.
I kind of thought that he might have done something.
But no arrests were ever made. In Cold Season 3, we dig into double lives, make new connections in the case, and examine the difficulty raised by reasonable doubt.
We want answers just as much as anyone else.
They have creeps like that now too, so nothing's changed.
That's the new Cold Season 3, The Search for Cherie, now available anywhere you get your podcasts.